I know Team Fortress 2 maps so well, I can navigate them blindfolded. Literally. Maybe it's a little bit of an exaggeration, but Team Fortress 2 maps are extremely memorable. And the fact that I even made it this far on any of the maps is insane. Memes, montages, horror stories, entire short films, feature-length deep dives on specific maps, Team Fortress 2 has some of the most memorable and iconic maps in all of gaming. And I'd argue that the reason for that is because these maps feel like more than just a place where I'm playing a game, but rather real environments that I'm exploring and just happen to be battling in. Compare this to any number of modern shooters, and I begin to question how TF2's maps have become so memorable. And I think I might have actually found the answer. But before we get to that, we have to go back to the beginning. I began with where I think all of us would begin, and arguably my strongest theory. Is it perhaps that all of the hours I've spent in Team Fortress 2 have made it so that the game is entirely second nature to me, making it extremely memorable? No. While I have a lot of hours in Team Fortress 2, I also have a ton of hours in games like Terraria, Trove, and most importantly for this video, Deadlock. Now, I do play a lot more games than this, but the nice thing about Deadlock is that it has one singular map. Deadlock is a game that I've been sinking countless hours into. And even though I can proudly say I know my way around the Cursed Apple, I still get lost all of the time, especially when I'm trying to go through the tunnels to get to my teammates quicker. I should know the Cursed Apple much better. And while yes, I did test running it blindfolded, you can clearly see that I have no clue where I'm going. Deadlock's map, I get flipped off sides all the time, even though it's a singular map. So Team Fortress 2 is doing something very specific. So what exactly is TF2 doing different? And that led me to my next theory. Could it be that hours don't necessarily have anything to do with it, but rather when I logged those hours? You see, Deadlock is in closed alpha, it's a very recent game, and I've gotten all these hours within the past few years. But Team Fortress 2 is a game that I played when I was in middle school. It's a game that I have a lot of memories built up on, and it's a huge nostalgia farm for me. Could it be when I got the hours that is more important than anything else? Enter Left 4 Dead 2, a game I put a lot of hours into when I was younger, and a place where I have a ton of nostalgic memories. This is the first place that I made online friends, not in Team Fortress 2, on Left 4 Dead 2. Even with all of the hours and all of the nostalgic memories I have for Left 4 Dead 2, I cannot remember left from right in that game. I wouldn't be able to guide anyone playing. I wouldn't be able to help anyone for their first time on the runs because I don't feel the same about those maps as I do for Team Fortress 2. That got me thinking about the similarities between Deadlock and Left 4 Dead 2. Both of these games require you to stay in your lane. What I mean by that is you are going to follow a set path throughout the game and you don't really explore what the map is like. If you're in Deadlock, you need to make sure you're getting your souls and actually working towards objectives. And if you're in Left 4 Dead 2, you need to be working with your team, otherwise you're going to die a lot easier. However, a majority of Team Fortress 2's game modes actively incentivize exploration of the map. Take a King of the Hill map, for instance. If you can't manage to attack the point from the right side, then you always have the left side. And almost all of these King of the Hill maps have some additional flanks beyond the main ways that you get to the point. The design of these maps lends themselves to actually being explored. With payload maps, that's even further the case, as you're literally traversing the map as you play it. This is why I might remember maps from Overwatch better than I do from something like Rainbow Six Siege. The maps themselves were designed with a bonus for exploring. At this point, this is just a theory with no actual way to test it. So I had to do something that no person has done in 2026. Download Paladins. That's right, the hit hero shooter by Hi-Rez Studios is actually the perfect test environment to see whether or not it has to do with the game modes that makes these maps extremely memorable. Going into it, I was a little bit worried about my abilities to help my teammates as well as actually functionally play the game. And we tried our best.
Whoa! What just happened to me? These guys are not bots.
So the grand question is the reason Team Fortress 2 maps are so memorable due to the design surrounding its most popular game modes like Payload and King of the Hill. The Koth game mode, or Onslaught in Paladins, really made me understand how spoiled I am with TF2 map design. I couldn't tell you anything about the maps that I played on other than the fact that there was a hole in the ceiling, and I know I played on a couple of different Onslaught maps, but they all blend together. And also it's really funny, I wrote this in the script that there's a hole in the ceiling, and then I went and got more footage just to make sure I had something other than the stream clips. I think there's a hole in the ceiling on all of the Onslaught maps. I think that's how they design it, is that there's a hole above the point. So now I really have no clue what maps I've played on and what I haven't. On the other hand, Payload, or more accurately, Siege in Paladins, is a mix between Payload and King of the Hill. You go to the point, you capture it, and then you push a cart from that point. Does it create a stronger connection with the maps? Maybe? I feel like for Siege, I was actually able to start understanding the maps really quickly. It felt a lot like second nature to me. The flanks were really easy to define, and I found myself getting to the points a lot quicker than I would in any other type of modern shooter. However, at the same time, I don't remember much about the maps. Even though I feel like I started to understand these maps better than I would other games, it's nowhere near to the level that Team Fortress 2 has. TF2 maps, I can almost instantly read. I don't know if it's because they've got the big arrows everywhere pointing me at where to go, or a mix of the hours or things. I really do feel like there's something to the game mode though, because Payload especially, I remember those maps so easily, and even things like Capture the Flag as well. Those maps, or those games especially, they force you to run the gambit, and so I remember those areas so well. So I think it's one of those things that, yes, if I'm answering the question of what makes Team Fortress 2 maps so memorable, the game modes themselves do have an effect on it, but nowhere near to what TF2 has. So if we're thinking about this as an equation, the game modes themselves is just one part of the equation, and there's still more to be found. While I do feel like I have a stronger connection to the maps in Paladins, there is still something that makes it hard for me to feel really immersed in these maps. However, Paladins did help me point in the right direction. Carl Gustav Jacob Jacobi is famous for saying,
Man muss immer umkehren.
Invert, always invert. Maybe the solution to why TF2 maps feel so memorable is in answering the question, why don't modern shooters feel real? Team Fortress 2 is a really old game, and the landscape surrounding gaming has switched from being primarily focused on casual entertainment with a niche competitive scene to a niche focus on casual entertainment with a very large competitive scene. The fact that esports is such a huge thing right now makes it to where companies are incentivized to make the next big esport. Games like Marvel Rivals, Rainbow Six, and Deadlock all focus heavily on competitive design. For the viewer experience, there needs to be as little downtime as possible, otherwise the matches are boring. Furthermore, these maps have to be easily readable because we have the spectators or the shoutcasters actually watching the match. As well, too many flanks, side areas, or fights outside of objectives makes it a worse esport because it's less balanced, or it makes it less friendly to the viewers, shoutcasters, or sponsors who are trying to figure out how the game works. This really shifts the focus of the maps from being a medium for you to experience the game into a tool to keep you playing and engaged, whether you're a viewer or participant. If you look at Deadlock, or I mean, honestly, really any MOBA, the camps and areas where you might be getting extra points or gold from, those are all really close to the lanes themselves. That way, all of a sudden, a fight can break off in those areas, keeping you engaged. Or, in something like Marvel Rivals, the actual distance to the objective oftentimes isn't very long. That way, there's as little downtime as possible for you to get there. Compare these to something like a typical payload map on TF2, and you have a really long distance to walk, especially on some of these larger maps. However, talking about map design, there's also a whole nother aspect of this, which is the community. TF2 has a very long-running casual history. I can goof off as a friendly in the corner giving sandwiches to anyone I want to, But in a game like Marvel Rivals, the community is much more competitive. So even if I'm playing just a quick play match, it's not necessarily something that I'm gonna goof off in because A, there isn't a way to goof off, but B, the community around it is extremely competitive oriented. If I go off the objectives too long, explore different routes, or even try fun play styles, I'm punished by other players. I think this is a huge reason why Team Fortress 2 maps are so memorable. I can actually explore them. I have time to actually feel the environments and what they're like. If you think about it like this, modern shooters are a playground on a road trip. Your family doesn't have much time, but they know you need to get some energy out. You can go play there for 15 minutes. Team Fortress 2 maps are your friend's house. You will be back there again. It is a safe environment for you to explore. So even though you might not know where the bathroom is first try, by your second trip, you're going to know that it's past the dining room to the right. That is how Team Fortress 2 maps are. They are a welcoming, comfortable environment that you will go to again, whereas modern shooters maps are just a stop along the journey. And here is where I think that next part of the equation is. I think that the reason Team Fortress 2 maps are so memorable is a mix between their design focus and the fact that the community is not competitively focused. There's a whole additional side to the community as well, and I'm specifically talking about creators. If you look at content for TF2, it's fun, it analyzes small details, and oftentimes it's less about the actual gameplay of the game, and maybe things like the design, for instance. If you take a look at content for modern shooters, on the other hand, think things like Marvel Rivals or Deadlock, guides about how to be the best, competitive clips, and crash outs from toxic streamers. That's not to say that casual or artistic content couldn't do numbers, but it's rather that it's just not made for the games themselves. Content about map design, about the games, weapons, or classes themselves, or anything that makes me think deeper about Team Fortress 2 beyond just, hey, this is a game in which you can shoot people, really makes the environments feel a lot more realistic. The content in which I've watched around Team Fortress 2 might increase the number of hours I've technically seen the maps, as well as the nostalgia I feel for the maps, adding to this ambiguous equation as maybe like a tertiary extra little point boost compared to other modern shooters. The community in this case is a huge part of Team Fortress 2, both from a content and from a casual perspective. So this kind of helps answer that question of why modern shooters don't feel real. It's because so much of the game focuses on this competitive aspect, whether through that competitive map design, or more importantly, through that community where the people playing the game themselves view it as a competitive game rather than a piece of art to analyze. It makes the focus less on the world in which we're playing and more specifically on gameplay interactions. So now we know.
Editing Lion here. Look, I screwed up this clip. It was supposed to be a really funny fake outro. Haha, got you. And it's too warm upstairs to re-record it. So please act like I pranked you with a really good fake outro, but you still stayed because you're that cool. Thank you.
Okay, I can't legitimately actually just leave it there, not without talking about map design first, which is a huge part of Team Fortress 2's maps as a whole. Team Fortress 2's maps are really intricately designed. I first want to talk about TF2's unique design philosophy on flanks. I'm going to call these flanks dueling grounds because they're not a flank that you'd see getting you to the objective, but rather side areas that just offer a new engaging experience for 1v1s or small fights. Dueling grounds are all of the flanks which are their own separate battles. Badwater, Dustbowl, Hightower. Think of about any Team Fortress 2 map and there is a dueling ground somewhere on the map. These are the areas that allow you to have unique, memorable interactions as small groups. Also, in other games, you can easily run away, whereas in Team Fortress 2's dueling grounds, there's usually only 1 or 2 exits that you can actually get away from. This cultivates an extremely personalized narrative for every single encounter you're in. You'll remember that you snuck up on that sniper, or you juked an enemy by this area, or any of the other countless stories that you could encounter in these small areas. Instead of it being about the best or most balanced design, it's about a story that you can now remember forever in these places. However, there's a whole other part of this. Team Fortress 2 is a 12v12 game. There really aren't any games that follow this pattern into modern day. Most modern shooters utilize very small team sizes, which means every single person has to do more in the actual game. In a 12v12, having a flank area that has a small 3v3 going is a lot more exciting than when you have a 2v2 in a flank and that's literally a third of your team. You all of a sudden have a lot more pressure on you in those environments. If you had entire whole team fights like you do in modern shooters, it would quickly get extremely hectic in TF2. And it's part of the reason why there's things like pub pushes. Because all of a sudden, everyone, hive mind clicks on like, I've got to get to the payload. And then all of a sudden you have a real actual huge team fight. And it's very different than the actual game itself. The fact that I can go out and I can use the Boston Basher to rush behind and get an enemy sniper is really exciting because I can end up doing a huge amount for my team, even though it's just a simple 1v1 interaction. Whereas in a modern shooter, I have to make sure that I am doing the most impact as I can possible. As well, I think there's a huge other part of this, and I mentioned a little bit. The ambient aesthetics that you see when going around in the map make it extremely memorable. I'm talking like the calendars in the spawn room, the posters you see around the map, the trash, the barrels, everything that makes it a realistic environment. Going back to Paladins, there isn't a ton of this stuff on the map. I don't see it every time I walk by. I don't feel like I'm in a real area because I'm not in a real area. This isn't somewhere that someone was before I got here into the battle. This was designed to be a competitive map, and I can really tell. I think Deadlock is a great example of this too. The Cursed Apple is supposed to be New York, right? And it does feel in a lot of ways very big compared to other MOBAs, and I would say even modern shooters as a whole. But I still feel like I'm in a video game. I cannot explore this map in a way that I feel like this is a real place with real apartments and things like that. It feels so jarring because it's not a real place. Even though you might not recognize it when you're playing the game, having played 5 matches, you're going to, in the back of your head, subconsciously go, oh, this is a real environment. This is a lived environment. Look at the paint chipping. Look at the rust on the tracks and things like that. Oh, this is weird. These signs are crooked or have bullet holes in them. It feels like a real environment. And that's honestly a huge part of all of this is just the if we're talking about this equation again, so much of this equation isn't actually a huge thing. There's not one huge thing that makes Team Fortress 2 maps so memorable, but it's rather all of the little things that add up. Because if you're multiplying by fun factor, Team Fortress 2 maps, you have, the aesthetics, you have the community around it, you have the content creators around it. All of these might just be 0.3, that one's a 0.2. But they add up into something that's 3 by the time you add up all these small little factors. And so it's your fun in the game times 3 times whatever the game mode is. And all of a sudden, ding, 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 TF2 has 100% on how memorable the maps are. So there you have it. Team Fortress 2 maps are memorable for a lot of reasons. If we go back to the equation example, a huge part of this is the small things that add up into a large percent of what makes TF2 maps so memorable. I feel like modern maps just don't have a lot of this stuff, and so I think they end up kind of weeding themselves out of being really memorable map design. Yeah. It's 82 degrees in here. I had to close the door so the air conditioning doesn't reach in here while I record. So you should like the video for my own sweat. That's why I'm glistening. I have a bunch of lights on in here to try and make the green screen a little bit better lit. Like the video. Thank you. Tell me your favorite maps in the comments, please. I like Pipeline, but you can like any map and you can tell me. Okay, bye for now.